Alright folks, I want to make this video because I've heard some questions arise as to what the front box squat is all about. And not just how to do it, but why do it. And why are we doing this? Why not just front squat like normal, right? And that's a fair question. So I want to talk about that. And before we get into the front box squat, first I want to mention and kind of explain a big component of exercise and just muscles in general, and that is the stretch shortening cycle, right? And it's this phenomenon, not really a phenomenon, right? We know why it happens, which basically states that if a muscle is rapidly stretched, right? So here's my muscle, right, getting stretched, going in opposite directions. Think of your quadriceps here, right, as you're squatting. As you descend into the squat, the muscle lengthens, right? When that rapid lengthening is immediately followed by a rapid shortening, right, then you can get more force produced on the shortening because it was preceded by the lengthening, right? This is most obvious in, think of a vertical jump, right? If you want to jump as high as possible from a standing position, what are you going to do? You're going to first bend your knees and sink into something like a quarter squat and then immediately change directions and explode up. Why? Because your brain knows that it can produce more force on the jump if it first drops into a shallow squat first, right? That same thing happens when we do a regular squat, right? So look at the video on the left, a normal front squat for me, and disregard this one for now. Don't worry about that, but just watch the normal front squat, right? You can see how I explode up out of the bottom quite easily because I get that rapid stretch, and then the muscles produce more force, right? So that's the stretch shortening cycle. What we're trying to do here with the front box squat is actually, we want to make the front squat harder, right? And there are ways to do that. We can make it harder by adding more weight, right? And that's a fine way to do it. But we can also change how the movement is performed. And that's where the front box squat comes into play. What happens when you sit on the squat, now don't watch, don't worry about this, right? Focus over here on the right. When I descend into the squat on the box, right, you can see that I'm actually taking my legs off tension momentarily, right, and then going from a dead stop. And what that does, right, so by breaking up the eccentric, the muscle lengthening phase, which happens on the way down here, right, by pausing, right, and then exploding up, it essentially takes away the stretch shortening cycle. And therefore it makes the standing up part that much harder because we put a significant pause, and not just a pause, right? Because you can't just stop on the box in order for this to be effective. You have to actually let your legs go off tension. Try to turn off the contraction that occurs when you're seated on the box, right? By doing that, we essentially turn the squat into a deadlift. Why? If you're doing a set of, say, even just 2 deadlifts, right? And let's say you're doing 2 touch and go deadlifts at a significant weight, that first rep is usually harder than the second rep. Why? Because the second rep, the bar, right, on the way down, you get on that second rep, the bar starts with that eccentric, that lowering phase, the muscles are lengthening, and then you touch and go and you immediately stand back up. That's why the second rep is often easier than the first. When you do a single deadlift, you don't get that eccentric muscle action followed by the concentric. You don't get the lengthening followed by the shortening. You just get the shortening from a dead stop. That's exactly what we're trying to do with the front box squat, okay? So if you are just going down and up right away with no pause and worse, not turning your legs off at all, you are not going to get out of this what you should be getting out of it, right? So the most important aspect of doing these front box squats correctly is turn your legs off when you're seated on the box, right? So let's back up here. And you can see it's a little hard to tell, but if you look closely at my legs, you can tell they're under tension, right, as I'm descending. And then right there, they turn off, essentially. I'm keeping my core tight, obviously, but the bar is basically just resting on my torso. My legs are not doing anything to support it. And then they fire, right? Boom, look at that, muscle contraction. And we're going from a dead stop and standing up. It is harder, right? In both these videos here, I'm using the same weight for the same number of reps, and actually the video on the left of me doing the front squats without the box occurred after I had done what did we do yesterday? 5 sets of 3 front box squats. I did this over here after I did these. So my legs are already tired, and that's still a whole lot easier because I'm taking away the stretch shortening cycle, okay? If you are just bouncing off the box, one, that's not good for your back. Good golly, don't do that. But beyond that, you're also not getting the performance benefit that we want. Other good things about using the box, you can really focus on your sort of bottom position, right? If you struggle to keep your knees out in the bottom of the squat, this is a good opportunity to pause in that bottom position. Make sure that your knees are out because you're momentarily unloading them, right? So you can almost drive those knees out a little more if you need to before you stand back up, okay? The other mistake that I see a lot of people making, and I caught myself doing it here, and so I'm not perfect either, and I'm glad I videoed myself so I could see this, right? But again, all right, don't watch this one, right? Don't worry about this guy over here. If you watch as I descend on the box squat, I rock back a little bit. Now that's partly because in order to unload the legs, you almost have to take the barbell. All right, let's back it up a little bit. Take the barbell not over my legs. You can see how the bar is not over the feet, right? You almost have to do that a little bit so that you can unload the legs. However, minimize how much you're rocking back. Rock back just enough so that your legs can be turned off, and then stand back up and try to minimize, watch this, rolling forward and then going up, right? Keep that to a minimum. Okay, so those are the two main things that I see happening. People are not turning off their legs, they're rolling forward too much to stand back up, and you're not going to get the benefits out of this. Your mindset with the front box squat needs to be not what is the most amount of weight I can do with the front box squat. That's wrong thinking. Instead, you need to think, how can I make this as challenging as possible without changing fundamentally what the movement is? It's still a front squat, right? And in such a way that it's actually going to carry over to and transfer to the squat without the box, right? Because if we're significantly changing your technique, or you're sitting your hips back really far on the box, that's not going to look like it does when you're squatting without it, okay? The beauty of this is, if we develop your strength here with the front box squat, right, and you develop this tremendous starting strength, that's basically what it is, the ability to go from a dead stop and just start. If we improve that ability, what do you think is going to happen then when we add the stretch shortening cycle back into it? When we give you this rapid stretch without the pause immediately followed by the contraction, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to squat more weight because your muscles can produce more force now than they could before as a result of what we did with the front box squats. Okay, so we just completed the 6th session on Monday. We're going to be squatting again on it's Thursday or Friday this week. The percentage is going to go up a little bit, but we're going back to 7 sets of 1. So I encourage you, there is heavy front box squatting in the next couple weeks, okay? So stick with the percentages that are recommended. If it says same weight across the board for all the sets, do that. Know that there's heavy stuff coming, and if it feels easier for you, if you feel like you need to put more weight on, make sure that you maybe truly are turning off your legs in the bottom and just try to stand up faster, right? Make that happen. Push with more force. You don't need more weight necessarily to get stronger. All right, that's my little hopefully helpful nugget on the front box squat. If you've got questions, let me know. It's relatively simple in execution. The reasoning behind it gets a little bit complex, I'll admit that. So if you got questions, let me know, and I'll try to explain it a little bit better.